Okay, I'm reading Monsters and Magical Sticks. We're on a really neat section here. This is called Pain as a Pattern. It's about patterns. If somebody else comes, that's great. And if not, that's okay. You can listen to it again. And this is really worth reading. Pain as a pattern. Oh, and here comes somebody. Okay, this section is called Pain as a Pattern. Physiological pain is more than pain. It too is a pattern. The individual suffering pain from illness or injury responds to the pain in a patterned way. The pattern is based on their past experience with pain, their belief system as to their ability to deal with pain, as well as their future expectations. The individual whose past experience and belief system lead them to expect that they can handle it, that they've always done okay, and that they know they will recover quickly, becomes what is called a reducer. As the name implies, these individuals are able not only to minimize their response to pain, they're also able to actually lower their perception of the pain itself. At the other end of the scale is what is called an augmenter. An augmenter's belief system, and therefore their remembered history of pain, is that pain is terrible, awful, always gets worse, and they can't stand it. Their future expectation is that the pain will always get worse before it gets better. That's a very powerful paragraph. Wow. This patterned response of thinking leads to the patient who interprets twinges and the itching of healing, pressure, gas after surgery, etc., as signals of pain, and as if by black magic or negative hypnosis, they actually experience more pain. Augmenters recover from illness or surgery more slowly and with more complications and more complaints than reducer. To reason with an augmenter or argue or give up and walk away in disgust is to forget that their belief system and pattern of response is, in effect, operating as a hypnotic suggestion. Logic and reason have little or less to do with it. So keep on forgetting to use logic. Just as a pattern can be an effective and automatic response producing beneficial results, so too can a pattern be an effective and automatic method for self-defeat. If an individual combines a belief system such as I can't succeed, I always fail, with a pattern of behavior that leads to self-doubt, he not only fails, but the failure itself proves his belief system. This leads to reinforcement of the automatic patterns of belief and behavior. It is well known in scientific and academic communities that an individual can state a hypnosis and then find the data and statistics to prove the theory. This principle also holds true for belief systems and patterns. A belief system leads to automating a response that leads to proving the belief system that leads to repetition of the pattern. It's almost like the proverbial snake eating its own tail and complaining about its imminent demise. Miller, Gallantier, Pribham, in Plans and the Structure of Behavior, 1960, point out that habits and skills are plans that begin as voluntary processes, but in the process of repeating and overlearning become fixed and automatic. So the next piece is hypnosis, patterns, and Erickson. In the section on therapeutic applications, we will discuss in more detail methods for interrupting self-defeating patterns of behavior. And we will help you to develop patterns for understanding and discovering patterns. For now, consider the results of sudden pattern interruption. Several years ago, researchers decided to interrupt hypnotic subjects as they were performing post-hypnotic tasks. They found something quite interesting. The subject, upon being interrupted, spontaneously entered into a hypnotic state. Milton Erickson utilized this phenomenon as a method of trance induction. For example, he would give a suggestion for some post-hypnotic activity to take place at the next session. Dr. Erickson would then interrupt the pattern. The subject not only entered into the hypnotic state, in many cases, the subject developed spontaneous amnesia for the events just preceding the trance state. If you, as a therapist, can discover a pattern in your patient and lead the patient to recreate it and interrupt it before completion, you may be surprised. You may find that the individual entering into the hypnotic state, I may be wrong, you may not be surprised at all. I'm definitely going to have to read this by myself many times, this little section. Wow. Case 7. A woman entered my office, sat down, tightly crossed her legs, then crossed her arms over her chest, let out a deep sigh, and began spewing out words. The words were about her hopeless situation, her stupidity, her inability to do anything right, and that she probably couldn't even learn this hypnotic stuff. At that point, my phone rang. Since I was expecting an important call, I had not turned it off. The woman looked upset, so I apologized and had her wait in the reception room while I completed the call. When I asked her back in, she sat in the same chair, recreated her initial behavior in every detail, tightly crossed her legs, then her arms, deep sigh, and then the stream of words of helplessness. Recognizing her behavior as a problem pattern, I decided to interrupt it. I said sharply, wait, I can't hear you from there. Would you mind moving to that other chair so I can hear you better? She moved to the other chair, crossed her legs, then arms, then sigh. But before she could spew, I turned to my desk and began writing without a glance to her. Next, I apologized and told her that the first chair would be better, and could she help me by moving back? As she sat down, I told her to please cross her legs and only then her arms. As she complied, she developed what Dr. Erickson calls responsive attentiveness. Erickson, Rossi, the best description of this might be staring in an almost daydreaming way. She was then told to close her eyes and take a deep breath and let it out slowly. That is her sigh described differently, before we could talk. As she complied, already responding to my lead and suggestions, she was then told, now that you are becoming so much more relaxed, you can continue breathing slowly, relaxing that much more, leaving it to her to figure out just how much is much more. And soon you may want to uncross just your arms or just your legs first, implying there would be a second uncrossing without knowing when. Within 2 minutes, a most satisfactory state had been achieved. As you analyze the preceding example, you may grasp now the importance of the recognition and interruption of the potential of patterns. It was a better than even bet that the woman's behavior was a patterned response in approaching any problem. Since she was in my office asking for help, it was also a good bet that her pattern was not working. Her pattern was first interrupted before she could get into her words of despair, sent her to another chair. She was then interrupted again, this time before her sigh sent her back to the first chair. Her pattern was again interrupted and directed, cross your legs and only then your arms, and further interrupted by the injection of close your eyes and take a deep breath and let it out slowly before we can talk. In summary, her pattern was interrupted, then redirected again into a formal hypnotic state. Love that. Instant pattern. Oh, I think we have to stop here. So we're going to go right into pattern of least distress. Yeah. Okay. See you.